Britain's Ministry of Defense said the ship had initially flown a false flag and is believed to have been involved in illegal activity linked to Hezbollah. Okay. I guess Hamas and Hezbollah are just like omnipresent everywhere in the world, man. Again, like I was talking about earlier, but how do people not get sick of this shit? How do people, even like in journals that I think are like more, give or take, like more respectable, like the Independent, I, it kills me the language that is used. I hate it so much because how are you going to sit here and say that, like, do we not, why is it that Fox News gets away with promoting things in a very, very, very direct narrative way? They say this should happen, this ought to happen, this ought not to have happened, this should not have happened, right? They actually make some sort of narrative argument for the things that they are covering. They are not trying to pretend to be unbiased. And this is why they retain audiences, and this is why they convince people, because people latch on to narratives. Like the Independents over here stating that Britain's Ministry of Defense said the ship had initially flown a false flag and is believed to have been involved in illegal activity linked to Hezbollah. You can't even put quotation marks around that. You can't even indicate that maybe that's a little bit insane to say. The Venezuelan tanker is linked to illegal activities with Hezbollah. And why are we so why is news media so this is why you can't trust the shit they say, man. This pisses me off because you can with I'll put it like this, with a degree of discernment, any mature degree of discernment can read something like this and extract the necessary information and be fine with it. But in what world are we extracting good information from something like this if we have less capable discernment? If you are reading this as like a liberal, right? Do you get off on the fact that your journalism, or the journalism that is catered towards you, is pretending to be non-biased? I don't want op-eds. I don't want talking heads. But holy shit, journalists used to give a fucking opinion. They used to use language to present the story in the way in which they thought it ought be viewed. But now instead we just have the most bland, moderate, we're not going to take sides here journalism, and that opens up the runway for all manner of conservative and radicalizing right-wing media to do it themselves. You don't want unbiased journalism, man. You don't want unbiased journalism. And I'll tell you why you don't want unbiased journalism. To have unbiased journalism, you would be sitting there saying to yourself, like, yes, I want just the information. Just what happened, when it happened, how it happened, right? With no bias. Sorry, that's not possible. When you attempt to do it like that, you almost always capitulate to the narrative of the status quo or to the narrative of interested parties. It always boils down to that. They created the idea of unbiased journalism as part of a narrative about how their messaging is objective reality. That framing sets folks up to not question what they're fed. Thank you. Thank you. And to that, right, you have to sit, again, and I'll just read it one more time. The oil tanker captured, like, off the coast of like Scotland or whatever. Britain's Ministry of Defense said the ship had initially flown a false flag and is believed to have been involved in illegal activity linked to Hezbollah. You know what I would rather see here? What I would rather see is Britain's Ministry of Defense claimed the ship had initially flown what they said to be was a false flag, and they believe to have been involved in, quote unquote, put in quotes, illegal activity linked to Hezbollah. And then after that say, there has been no evidence provided for such a claim. And then I would like to see more narrativization there, because it's insane there's no pushback on that. You should say something like, oh, I don't know, this correlates with a wide variety of opportunistic framing that plays capitulation towards Zionism or some other bullshit. I don't know. Say anything. Just don't pretend like this is a neutral event. There are no neutral events. And the more we allow this objective, unbiased journalism to continue to run rampant, right, with no pushback on like, hey, how come I feel like I'm just being given like, oh, I don't know, not the actual like facts, but I still feel like someone's playing ball for the status quo or whatever the fuck, establishment, deep state, whatever fucking term people like to use. It's because of this. It's because of this. Anyway, sorry. It's my little rant there. The U.S. operation was supported by Britain's Royal Air Force and one of its military vessels, which British Defense Secretary John Healey said was part of a global efforts to crack down on sanctions busting. Oh, by the way, SynFvll, thank you so much for joining the stream. I hope that you're enjoying. Anyway, Healey said that they were part of global efforts to crack down on sanctions busting. How we can punish folks in other nations on the other side of the planet with their own laws for breaking our laws we decide to impose on them, almost like an empire. It's exactly like an empire. It is empire. This is the definition of modern empire. At least definition in action. You don't even have, when you write something like this, you don't even have to play like defense for Maduro or Russia or whoever the involved parties are, right? Why cannot there be a legitimate effort to, I guess, why can there not be a legitimate effort to weaponize narrativity in the direction of the left? It's not like the Independent, just as an example, is like a right-leaning like rag. They're not. Like but the language, man, it opens up that opportunity because people look for narrative when they feel like they're not being sold something. So you're upset that the U.S. is enforcing the oil sanction imposed by the Biden admin and the EU due to the Ukraine war. Okay. So I'll put it like this. This right here, the sanction, I am against U.S. sanctions. I don't want U.S. sanctions. I am upset that the U.S. is enforcing oil sanctions because I don't want sanctions. I want people to be happy, man. I don't want fucking sanctions, dude. Anyway, here's this last bit. Does the seizure have precedent? The The Marinero's capture marks the third oil tanker seized by the U.S. since its campaign against Venezuela began in early September. Last month, two apparent Venezuelan oil tankers were seized by the U.S. forces, including the Sentries and the Skipper, the latter of which had been sanctioned in 2022 for its alleged role in helping fund the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. I'm glad that they didn't call them terrorists. That's new. The seizure of the Skipper, along with the footage of U.S. forces boarding the ship, marked a major escalation in Trump's campaign to pressure Maduro by current off access to the oil revenues, which have been so critical for Venezuela. At least 16 oil tankers have attempted to evade the U.S. naval blockade by disguising their location or turning off transmission beacons, the New York Times reported on Monday. Good. They should. I want, at this point, I want infinite, unlimited crude oil escaping the American sanctions to the rest of the world. Give it to them for free, bro. I don't fucking care. That's insane, dude.